I'm going to start with the meditation just to get us grounded. So there's no right or wrong way to meditate, just so you know. So I'll walk you through that. The way that I look at meditation is really just incorporating ways to bring breath into your body and just get yourself into the moment. So if you want to close your eyes, go ahead. Obviously, it's an option, but it does help to get internal, which is what we're going to do today. So close your eyes. Maybe get comfortable in your seat. Bring some length into your spine. Bring the crown of your head high to the sky. And now just notice breath. Drop your shoulders, release your jaw. Release any tension you're finding in your body at this time. And then you'll notice your body wants to naturally just start to bring breath. So do that in whatever way works for you. So some people do it in through the nose, out through the mouth. And then see if you can maybe make your exhales longer than your inhales. So taking a really deep breath in through the nose. Maybe holding at the top, really lengthening, and then see if you can let the air out as slow as you can. And again, no right or wrong, no good or bad, just really being present in this moment. Bringing some awareness to your body, to what sensations are coming up. And then to embrace it and love it as we just have an experience together. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. You can maybe bring some movement into your shoulders. Yeah. And now you're here. I'm glad to have you. So I'm going to read from the book, just a little bit more about myself. My name is Ayanna. This is my second book, so I'll sort of talk about the first one and let you know how the second one came about. It'll make a little bit more sense. So the first one is called Becoming Free. And I wrote that as a sort of memoir to my journey through addiction and alcohol and the way that I sort of became free in my life. But as we know, as we talk about, I have a nonprofit on Cape Cod, so I'll tell you that too. I'll tell you a little bit more after that. You can ask me questions after I read. But I really found power in helping my body and my breath to connect so that that's the way I found healing. And so the first book kind of walks through like, how did I get to the place of being in rehab, right? Walks through all those places. So trauma really, as a young child, found me. And there was many moments of my life that were extremely difficult. And there was one point that I talk about where I was on a train and I waited for my mom to show up. She was also an addict and she didn't show up, right? So I was like a young child just waiting for her not to, and she just didn't show up. So that was like my entry into the world and into the life of the world that I live in. So I really connected to the fact that I wasn't enough, right? Somewhere that whole experience became my understanding for I wasn't enough. So then I went through the world, I became a social worker, all these things, right? Trying to help other people as we do when we have trauma. And then alcohol found its way into my world and instantly made me feel better. And I was like, aha, alcohol makes me feel like I'm enough, right? So there was the magic, but also then the bind, which I found myself in for a really long time. So that's beginning, and I walked through that whole story in the first book. The second book, which I'm going to talk about today, really walks through very specifically kind of what were the tools that I really developed in order to be able to do that. So the first book kind of talks about the stories and, you know, some of the ways in which I was either harmed and then got out of that. But then I thought, people really need to know. It's not enough just to say, like, I found healing in my body, right? There were actual very specific ways that I used to develop living a very different life that was actually very joyful now, which is great. So I'll read you the preface and then we'll open it up just for a discussion. Good, yeah, okay, cool. And Also, I do swear, so it will come up in the book, it's written in the book, so I won't swear at you, but I promise. And I do laugh and I get loud, so just roll with it. All right. How do you know you are stuck? Is it possible to get unstuck? Fuck yeah, it is. I was in my kitchen rushing to get my foster daughter, soon to be adopted daughter from DCF, off to preschool. At the time, I was trying to be a new mom, a sober person in the world, and a newly trained yoga teacher that was off to teach her first yoga class. Yes, I was rushing to teach yoga. How very zen of me. If you have children, you know that moment in that split second, if they don't get their butts moving, you will be late again. The more frustrated I got, the more she wouldn't do what I was saying. The more time went on, the more tense I got. I could feel my shoulders rising higher than my third eye with anxiety. I just kept hearing her laugh in her room. She has this loud, raspy cackle that you could hear from 5 towns over. It was so bold, unapologetic, and I was always jealous of the freedom that echoed from her mouth. My inner child longed for just one moment like that. As I listened, tears welled up in my eyes as I became more annoyed, trying to continue, and wished that I wasn't. The tears were from pure exhaustion at this point, and I felt like a failure. I was sober, but not a good mom. I couldn't even get to my yoga class on time. The feelings of disappointment flooded me. Then there was music, there was singing, and there was more laughter. It just kept getting louder as I tried to make her lunch, spilling grape jelly all down the front of my white yoga tank that stated, "Just trust the universe." All I could think of at that moment was, the universe has jokes, lots of jokes on me today. Blessing, I screamed, "Let's go!" More laughter, more sounds, and more giggles as I walked towards her room. Now I was pissed. I stormed in her room thinking she would have been trying to put a sock on, but nope. She was naked, butt naked, dancing. Every time she looked at herself in the mirror, in all her glory, singing, dancing, giggling, laughing so hard she was crying. She was 4 years old. Her beautiful dark brown skin glistened in contrast to her white teeth. Her dancing was by far the most beautiful, freeing thing I had ever seen. Now, there are many things that could have happened next, but what did might surprise you. Instead of making her stop, I joined her. Yep, I took my clothes right off and started dancing too. That really made her laugh. There are many moments in my life that I love, but this one always makes me happy no matter how low I can get. When she was done, she turned the music off and said, "Put your clothes on, silly. Mom, we gotta go to school." We made it to preschool on time, and I made it to my yoga class smiling, with a story about joy, feeling free in your body, and going with the flow to share with the class. After that yoga class, I expected to still feel free from that moment I had in the kitchen. I realized I had made it through. By the laughter, I was able to muster up in the dark, but instead, I just felt stuck in my head and my heart, but most of all in my body. There was pain in new places I had never felt before. It felt like stress of loss, survival, grief, fear, struggle, unworthiness, and adrenaline had all seeped through my veins. I could even feel it in my bones. The pain was piercing to the touch. I felt the grief of my mom wash over me. I felt all of the moments little Yanni was left on the train station, where my mom Valerie was supposed to pick me up and never did. I felt the sting in my body when my husband showed up for blessing in beautiful ways that my dad never could for me. The feelings were deep in my hips, my shoulders, and my jaw. At that moment, I sat down in the studio with all the pain. I fell to my knees. I had to make a choice. I could choose to be with the pain and witness it, or I could stuff it down more and keep walking like I had been doing for so many years prior. I chose to listen to the pain. I walked alongside it. I held its hand. I witnessed it without judgment. I asked questions and invited curiosity. I observed it, validated it, and tried to hold it as gently as a bubble that would pop if I moved too fast. I started to notice breath in this moment and how it felt different and how much I needed it. I realized it was the one thing holding me gently, but not letting me go in this moment, like I wish my parents did so many times. The more I took a deep, long breath, the more pain grew less and did not captivate me. My body was finally able to move with less pain as I sat with the pain and fed it breath as medicine. My body whispered, I'm in pain. I have been for a while. I am stuck. Can you help? My fear whispered back, is that even possible? The universe whispered in return, of course it is, my love. But you do need to become your own best friend first. I realized as I thought back to watching my daughter move so freely in her body that my inner child never got a chance to have those moments. I had to always protect myself to keep myself alive. That kind of freedom wasn't a choice. It was a privilege and a luxury. The grief of accepting that came like waves wrestling with each other as I watched with endless forgiveness and radical self-love. Two things became very clear that day. All the trauma I experienced in my life was stuck in my body, not in my head, and I couldn't talk my way out of it. It was very possible to heal myself if I led with love and only love. I imagine if you're reading this, you might feel the same. You might feel so stuck in your mind and your heart and try all the things that aren't working. In some cases, they might make you feel more stuck. If you're like me, when you get upset or down or depressed or hopeless, you throw all the shit at it that you can to feel anything but the pain. Especially for those of us who are in recovery from anything. You can't drink it away, eat it away, throw it up, smoke it away. It's super hard. You probably might try to yoga it out, run it out, screen it out, therapy it out, try it out, cry it out. There are days where sometimes that works, but then there are days when it doesn't and your mind keeps asking over and over, why? I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to do. Why do I still feel so stuck? I go to therapy 2 times a week and I still feel horrible and sometimes worse. Together in this book, we will take the journey together alongside one another to explore those questions and have your best friend answer them. The truth is at some point in time, you went from that 4-year-old dancing in the mirror, wiggling and singing with freedom, to all the pain of your life that got stacked on one another in an adult body. You forgot to water the soil of your growth with unconditional love along the way, probably because trauma convinced you to. Can you get unstuck? Is it possible? Of course it is. It will take some moments of being super brave to look in the shadows of yourself that have been hiding over 20 years, just waiting to see the sun. It will take moments of being super uncomfortable in your body to witness the fear to find out where it's hiding. Why are you still stuck? Because the body and the brain are built for one thing and one thing only, to keep you alive. No matter how old you are, if you experience anything, no matter how small, if the body and the mind perceive it to be dangerous in any way, its job is to protect you. Its job is to help you to survive no matter what. In order to keep going, our body kicks into survival mode and tucks the moment far away somewhere in our body, trying to hide it so we can keep living. Feeling the pain is sometimes too much. Then we try to forget it never happened until we're forced to face it again. The pain can land in our hips, our back, our right ankle, our frontal lobe, our gut, the left ventricle of our heart, our liver, the buckle of our knees, armpits, and all the way down to the fibers and tissues that hold us together. That is not pain we could talk away. We have to play hide and seek in the forest of our bodies to find the pain and then start loving it up like hugging trees. Are you ready? Let's journey together as we get playful with finding freedom and release what your mind, body, and heart have been seeking. Let's find out how to be a 4-year-old again and the freedom of a bird dancing in front of the mirror, happy and naked. Let's get the fuck unstuck. So we can just open it up for general conversation, and I have books, and I can walk you through the 12 agreements if you want. It's kind of long, but I can sort of go over them if you're interested. If not, we don't have to, or we can just open it up for general discussion. Yeah.
So there are 12 recommendations sort of after the.
So yeah, let me.
That's okay, it was just.
No, yeah,
format.
it's good. So they're called the 12 body agreements. And the cool thing about this book, which the first book doesn't have, is there's like activities and work stuff in the back. There's meditations that are already pre-recorded for each section of the book. So the book's kind of broken down into 3 sections. So it's grounding, connecting, and growing. So that's sort of how I kind of did the framework for this book, but also for the nonprofit that I run in INS. It was in Harwich, but so all the stuff that I do around trauma really has to do with getting yourself grounded in your body first, and then connecting with the collective, and then growing together. So that's where those 3 concepts came. And then the 12 agreements came from, like I literally had to sit down and figure out, like, where was this stuff in my body and how did I move it out, right? So I just started writing. And then they sort of just came into. So I kind of played off of, you think about like the 12, AA, that kind of stuff. I don't do that anymore. Not that it's bad, I totally think it's great, but I love the concept of steps and making agreements with yourself that you can just hold accountable and really make a commitment to yourself. The framework in here walks you through how to make your own. So my 12 are my own. So it walks you through, like, you can create your own 12 body agreements. And so there's a template in here that walks you how to do that. So I'll just read the 12 agreements just so you can get a sense. So the one is, I agree to listen to my body. 2, I will not rush and pause often. So that one's key. So if you think about how much you rush during the day, it's a lot. Yeah, so the body has no idea whether or not, because when you're rushing, it thinks it's in danger, whether you're just going to the store or running from an accident. So the body can't tell the difference. It just knows it's hurried. So it's something that feels wrong. So that's a big one. 3, I'll tune into breath every moment possible. 4, I will use loving words with my body and my body as my best friend. I did an activity where if some of us have really negative thoughts about ourselves, yeah, whether or not you think you do it, like the one that comes up the most is like, I don't know, if you gain weight, then that comes up in your head, like, oh, I gotta lose it, I don't look, you're getting older, you're premenopause, it's a whole other scene. But so if you have negative self-talk, I did an activity where I wrote down all the things, the negative stuff that I was saying to myself. Then I put my best friend's name on top. And it was awful because I was like, oh my God, like I would never say that to somebody I love, or my child on top. I would never say that to somebody that I hold precious. Like, well, oh my God, like really horrible. Oh yeah, like you're fat, like come on. Yeah, so that's where the whole best friend came in. If we can, and there's an activity in the book where it walks you through like how to write that letter to yourself. So yeah. I will stop moving my body when it's in pain. Oh my gosh. So sometimes we think we really have to push through. And sometimes what the body needs is rest and just to stop, especially when it's in pain, to really just be with it and to not force it to shift. I'll fuel my body with things that nourish and not harm. So that has to do not just with food. This sounds funny. I don't do anything with nutrition personally myself. I feel like that's just it's a hard balance. The food needs body. For me, I love chocolate, I love sugar, and to remove that stuff would be rough for me. But I do know that there's balance and there's other ways to work with that. So, and the body certainly, like I know my body can process sugar very well. Like I probably, there needs to be balance there. But I would never tell somebody what to eat or how to eat it. Like it's not what I do. But in nourishing the body, the way that I work with it is like sit with how you feel, the mindfulness sort of way of being with food, right? But also it has to do with not just food, but the intake of everything. Your phone, the TV, where you are, what people you're with, right? So the intake of anything doesn't have to be with food. It can be with, the phone's the biggest one. What we see, what we watch, the energy in which our body takes from other people. Yeah, so that's that one. I don't apologize for choosing myself. Yeah, that one speaks for itself. 10, I choose to be in relationship with others with equal energy exchange that honor the collective. So that one has to do with, like think about how your body reacts when you're around somebody that's negative, even if their words are positive, right? How does your body feel after? Not like what your thoughts are, right? You call your friend and you're ranting about like, right? But notice how like your body feels. That energy lands particularly in your gut. So you think about how you process food. After you've had that kind of experience, your body is so attuned to energy that it really it lands in your body. So you want to be with people that really, that you want to go change the world after you've been with. So, yeah. 11, I will be in rotation with laughter and joy whenever possible. Laughter and joy is like, think about when you were a little kid, when I talked about my daughter in front of the mirror, that's the state of the human being, that's the state of human nature, is to be with laughter and joy. And somehow along the way, we got to be adults and we expected different things, but that wasn't okay. So yeah, incorporate that as much as you can. And the last one, I'll define what medicine is for my body and soul. So I love that word medicine because it doesn't have to be a pill. For me, it's breath. It's always, breath is just like, I could talk about it for like 10 hours, which sounds so boring to other people, but to me, it's like, it's the way in which the body can really be present. So, I'm sure you have things like sometimes for people it's nature, sometimes it's being around kids. It's like when you're in a bad mood and you plant yourself in an experience, like that's your medicine when it like lands right in your body without you having to think about it. That's the medicine. So those are the 12 agreements. Yeah.
You mentioned your nonprofit. Can you tell us about it?
Oh yeah. You're so good at asking good questions. So it's called Be Free Wellness, and I started it about 6 years ago. I started as not a nonprofit, just as a sole proprietor, to incorporate the ways in which movement and mental health interacted with each other. There was not a whole lot of that when I got a rehab 7 years ago. There was like, you go to your therapist, and then you go over here to get well, and then you go over here. And my thought was, we really need to have a center where it's just one place. So in COVID, it became very apparent to me when we lost all our members because they couldn't afford it anymore, that we needed a nonprofit and to make that accessible, because what was going to happen is like human nature is not meant to be in isolation. So after COVID, I was like, I was already working with people who had extreme trauma in their lives, but now there wasn't one person that was not going to resonate with what trauma felt like in their body, not one. So I created the nonprofit that's now in Hyannis. And we have 6 different programs. So there's a movement studio that's there. And you get any given day, it's open to the public. You can do Zumba, fitness training, meditation, live last. dance, yoga, and I'm like, good stuff. And we try to incorporate different ways in which you can be sort of really high vibe energy and then really low chill. But then we also have holistic services, in which we call our wraparound services. And so that's where you can get mental health counselor or a wellness counselor, nutrition. You get like a team of folks that kind of wrap you in their expertise. And you have a team of folks that you can just work for 3 months. And after that, you can choose to work with them or not. Or you might be like, oh my God, I love the reflexology. I love, Reiki. I'm going to do that, and then I'm just going to hang out in the studio. So yeah, so that's what we offer now. We also do, our mission really surrounds helping people with trauma. So we have a pretty rigorous first responder program in which I work with the police, and then Kaylin, my program director, does the fire departments, and then we don't actually bring them together because there's, but we try to incorporate different ways in which to help them, because there's a lot of trauma that they see and experience in the world. But then the extension of that is that how are they interacting with other people in the world because of the trauma? So we do a lot around that, a lot of education around police brutality and how that happens or may come about. And then we have a veterans program, very similar, but that's run by a veteran. And they kind of do their own thing. It's a beautiful program that runs itself, and they meet up, quarterly and support each other. That's called One Call Away. And we kind of rotate who picks up the phone if a veteran is in a need, because oftentimes what happens is with PTSD, you'll get flooded with something and you just need a voice. And so we'll be the voice. And then they, most of the times, unless it's like really critical, obviously we'll take care of that too. But most of the time it's just they need a landing space. And then our new program that just started is called Healing Justice, and that's where we are in the jails and the courts. And that's rolling out in April. We've been working on that for about 6 months. So we'll be in the courts working with probation, and then in the jails doing trauma and healing work with movement. And the point of that really is to help people just reduce being involved in the criminal justice system at all. Because if you look at the stats, 90% of them have mental health or substance abuse issues anyway. So we need to really immerse ourselves to help that population to shift some of that. Yeah. So that's our nonprofit. But it's also open to the public, and anyone can come and just do stuff.
And it's down.
It's right on Main Street.
Yeah,
yeah, so here, right where Bread and Roses is, just right across there, yeah.
Did you have a place in Falmouth that was there? Was that?
No, you're probably thinking of Wellstrong, which is very similar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we go there if we want to dance naked?
Absolutely, yes. That is welcome. No, I mean, not really. But there is a lot of dancing. There's a lot of dancing. Yeah.
Is it generally accepted now that trauma, that the mental health is so associated with like the body, that the body holds rights? Is that now generally accepted, or is it kind of still kind of a newish notion?
What a great question. It's a newish notion. Like I would say in the past 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
And the whole connection with, like, I think about healing as a circle,
Right.
where like you have to heal the whole body.
Mm-hmm.
This is a whole new concept. Like, try to explain, Cindy, try to explain, like, as a nonprofit to funders that this does work as a circle, and you don't actually have to, you can't just see a counselor anymore.
Right.
Like, it's not, seeing a counselor is great, but there is really something not working with the system when you have suicide rates so high. And so we have to change it up, right? And because of what I do, it seems like so outside the box. People are just kind of, I'd say in the past 5 years, they're like, they don't look at me like I have 10 heads, sometimes they still do. They're like, what are you talking about? Yeah, so it's like even sitting across from somebody for an hour, if you're seated and you're talking about, and my best example is this, when women with domestic violence will talk about the abuse. And then that lands in thought somewhere. Like if there's not a continuation of care of that person needs to go for a walk, that person needs to shout, that person needs to shake, like there has to be, all emotions are energy, all of them. And I think the reason why it's becoming so, people are hearing it more is because science is now directly connected to diabetes. You know, they can now connect stress to diabetes. Like it's a very clear stress to death, right? Now burnout just became, there's a whole thing that just came out about burnout leading to the cause of death. And I'm like, all of these things are preventable. Like I'm like these, and so if you just get people to breathe and move.
Right, it's all interconnected.
It's all interconnected.
And I just did a small little nutrition certificate, and even that, the guy who ran that program, Colin Campbell, he's talking about like a holistic view, even with nutrition, like stop separating everything like they're all these individual problems. Like go to see a specialist for nutrition, go to see a specialist for mental health. It's all interconnected, and you know what we eat affects, you know, the gut health, the brain, and the gut's connected to the brain, and and then the emotional. So he always talks about stress management as well. Like, it's not just about eating more vegetables, you know, it's about, you know, addressing the whole. Yeah, and then which vegetables for which body? It's like yoga, like they train in yoga, like you have to, you know, do it this certain way, and I'm like, but you can't, because everybody's body is different. So I gotta watch bodies and figure out for them which, or same thing with food. It's like I could tell someone to do the intermittent fasting, and my person on the left's not gonna be able to integrate that for whatever reason. And he also always, you know, one of the things is also, well, what's the healthiest vegetables? The healthiest vegetables are the ones you're actually going to eat. Right. You know, it's the same exercise. The best exercise is one that you're going to do consistently. I know. You know, people are like, so much of it is kind of common sense, but it's just such a situation in society where we compartmentalize everything. You know, where we've kind of lost this view of how it all kind of works together. You know, it just makes sense. Exactly.
I don't know where the quote came from. The body keeps score.
Oh my God! Yeah, did you read that?
I don't. That's all I know. But
I
don't even know what it means.
I mean, your body. What's his name? Bender Van.
So it means. Does that mean that trauma?
So he was one of the first guys to talk about the connection between trauma and your body. Yeah, and his
which is what we're saying.
Yeah, it's sort of based on all that stuff. It's really dense, that book, so it's hard to.
That's probably what he took it out of the library.
No, it's a great book. I have my coaches read it when I do my coaching training. Teach them how to be wellness coaches. They are required to read that before they do the training. But because it kind of lays the foundation, but then you can open it up to like what is he really saying, right? It's a great book though. So for that specific, Sorry.
Hi.
Hi.
One of the things, I'm sorry I was late, but one of the things I wanted to ask is, did this all come to you after you got into recovery?
Oh, good question. Yes. Well, yes and no. So, let's see. When I was struggling, so I was an active addict for, I don't know, 25 years. Well, I don't know. A long time. Most of my life. And there were times where I could manage it and times where I couldn't. Where it really fell apart was when my mom died. And I could not function. Like the only way I could function was with alcohol. But prior to that, I always loved moving. I always loved dancing. So I knew that the one place that I was happy, whether I was, drinking or not, was dancing. And I, for a long time there, I used to live in Boston and I would just take classes like every week. I would drink after, but I was very aware that I wasn't drinking. That was like probably unless I was working, the only times where I didn't and felt joyful and felt like okay. And so, but when I got sober, and I had tried like NA and all these other things, the sponsor, rehab, it was sort of helpful, but I just kept thinking like, something's not working. Like something's not right. So it was actually when I went to rehab the second time, I was in the middle of yoga teacher training and I relapsed. And so, and it was like very hard because that moment of like, I'm trying to do the right thing. I was sober, trying to do the right thing, getting into yoga teacher training, and boom, something got triggered and PTSD, I just couldn't get out of it and I drank. So I went back to rehab. But I was very aware that I needed yoga more than anything else in my life. So because the dancing was great, but it was fast paced. Where I needed to stay was when I needed to slow down with my body and let it be. So, and the second time, instead of doing the groups and stuff, I literally got on my yoga mat But that's how the first book came out, was I would do down dog and I would cry and I would write the sensations in a journal. And then I would do another position. And then the like grief of my mom would come up. And I would do different poses and I would see how my body felt in the poses. And did I feel better or worse? And then I had a moment on the mat where I took a deep breath. And I was having just like all these horrible thoughts. And I took a deep breath and I shifted the thoughts as I was breathing into positive thoughts. And I was like, wait, what? I can just do that with breath? That's insane. So I wrote that down. I was like, oh my God, there's like magic here where I don't actually, I mean, I need support and help, but I can heal myself with my own body. So that's how that whole journey started 6 or 7 years ago. And I've been like, just talking about it.
So you're saying that through breath and yoga, you can relieve yourself of the trauma, or you did relieve yourself of the trauma from the past.
That is
And
correct.
that's what the book is about.
Yeah,
Am I right?
you are correct.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, yeah, it is.
You always hear people, I was just talking to someone who's been doing yoga for years. And, I mean, you can tell the difference
Yeah,
in people who practice yoga.
yeah, yeah.
You can tell it physically, mentally, but here from that concept, I've never heard that, so that's interesting.
Yeah. It is, and I knew that there wasn't anything out there like that. Because when I got out of rehab, I was like, where's the place where I go for that? Like, who else can teach me that? There was nothing. So I was like, I have to create it.
Or it's like a self-discovery thing.
Yeah,
You know? It's like
yeah.
really, so like dancing, I'm not a dancer, but
Yeah.
dancing for me is like, that's great, that's fun, it's distracting, it's the
Right.
music, the rest of it, but yoga, you're really like on your own,
Mhm.
looking inward,
Yeah,
you know, and I take Kaylin's yoga classes,
Yeah.
and I mean, I've lost my mom recently as well, so I mean, she's so happy when she sees me crying. She
yeah,
gives me a big hug and she's like, I'm so happy that it works. You
Yeah.
know, that it
Oh,
makes
yeah.
you have that emotional reaction. Something is released, you know, really helps
Yeah.
you release pain. It's a safe space, you know, you're on your mat, whether you're with 3 people or 30 people or on your own.
right.
It's a safe place for you to just kind of let it all out. And it's very healing.
The deep
breathing too.
Yeah, healing, the breathing, sure, yeah.
The most amazing thing is when I work with veterans, you know, they've tried therapy and a lot of them are drinking or taking pills and they know that they have to stop, just because the pain is too much. And what I will do with them, literally for 3 months straight, once a week, is restorative yoga. And that's where you just lie and you're propped up on pillows and then you work with breath in the body. And so what will end up happening is I'll sit with them and just put them in a pose and just tell them to breathe and walk them through how to breathe. But naturally what happens when your body gets still is a memory will come up, you know, like a flashback, you know, like, and then what ends up happening is fight or flight, they want to get up, they want to go out, right? They want to be like, pill or something, make this go away, like right now. So I'll sit with them and just walk them through how to breathe through it. And you don't actually have, there's a way in which breath can help your body to know that it's safe. So all they need to know is that that action isn't happening right now. And so that disconnection changes their whole way of being. Because if you can understand that in that moment, you're not in danger, even though you feel like it, you can walk yourself through how to calm yourself down. And it literally takes a minute. It doesn't take any longer than that. But the body needs to know that it's safe. So, but the body feels like when you have a flashback, it's so powerful. It's like a panic attack. You feel like you're dying. You feel like you're in war. Your body's reacting like, you know, as if a car tire blows, right? And then they're all of a sudden like back.
Oh, you have a nightmare. I mean, I had a bad dream, and you wake up and get shot, you know,
Right.
you think it's really happening, and then you're like, oh, yeah, okay, so it's not real, you know, but yeah, but a traumatic experience like a war,
Yeah,
it's gotta be really hard to process.
yeah. But then they don't have to talk.
Right.
But that's the whole thing, it's like, the doctors are like, go to therapy, and they're like, I'm not gonna just tell somebody, I'm watching in my mind that I just blew a guy's brains, like, I'm just not gonna talk about that. And you shouldn't have to. Same thing with domestic violence with women, it's like, please don't reintegrate that into their being. Don't keep doing that, I understand therapy is important, but every time a woman has to tell the story, their power is ripped away. So it's like, it's okay to just move it out, it's okay to go slow, it's okay to, it's also okay to like be in the present moment of like, how is whatever your trauma is impacting you currently. We don't have to go all the way back unless you want to. But we know enough to know that this is how it's affecting your life right now. So let's deal with that. And most of the time that's enough. And sometimes there's other people that really need to go deeper, like I did with my mom, second time in rehab. I really had to dig deep I had to release the grief. If I didn't release the grief, there was no way I was gonna release alcohol. It's just, they were too intertwined. So I had to separate them out. And for me, I needed 28 days and a safe space for it. Not everybody does.
You know what, I can't remember if it was your introduction that you were reading, but I think you talked about if you can stand apart from the pain, your trauma, and just look at it as a separate thing that's over there. So you're sort of visualizing or looking at it, but it's not part of you, it's putting it aside. Was that in the introduction, or was that when you were talking about your childhood?
I can't remember, but I often talk about attachment of thoughts to not having the pain so much. So like that's where meditation is so powerful, where you become the observer of your thoughts.
Yeah.
And that it doesn't feel like it's attached to you. That's where the power comes from, and that's where it's like, oh, okay, I don't have to feel that. Like even now I can think about my mom and I'm not in a puddle. I used to not be able to think about her without like, it was unravelable. Like to the point where I would get a bathroom crying. Like I just couldn't. Now I talk about her time, and it's great, and I can connect to her energy, and she's alive wherever she is, and watching me, all that kind of stuff, but before it was not. But I had to separate the attachment of the thoughts. Yeah. And we think that thoughts and emotions are pain, but they're really just thoughts and emotions. Yeah. It's the human mind, it's the thoughts that create the connection that there's pain. There's sometimes isn't.
I think it's a little bit like saying there's a brick wall and we share the wall.
Yeah. It's a good way to look at it.
But it's amazing how, we can not control in a negative way, but that you have, through breath, through yoga, through like that, however people process it, you can like get over stuff, or at least like live with it, or turn it into something that's more positive,
Yeah.
But it's work, you have to.
It is work.
We have to first. You have to recognize it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, especially with substances, don't want to admit that they have a problem with that.
Right.
Yeah, that's the first hurdle. But
Yeah.
so I personally find it empowering to know that people have found so much comfort in something as simple as breath and yoga, and
Yeah.
it's helped so many people.
Yeah.
So what do you say to the veteran, like? I mean, I'm a little,
Yeah.
what do you say to someone like a veteran who just comes to see you?
Yeah.
And ask him to go through, to do like that exercise?
Like the restorative yoga.
I think you're crazy.
No.
So,
It's so outside the box.
right.
Yeah. No, what's funny is they are so relieved that they don't have to talk. So relieved. I don't have to tell you this, no. There you go.
And they chose to come.
Yeah. What ends up happening is like, oftentimes, like, I'll have people in the studio, like their wives, it happens with cops too, where, they'll be like, you just go, it's not gonna make you talk, it's not gonna do anything crazy, right? It's not, what's scary is sitting across from somebody, having to dig all that up, share it all, and then walk away with it. That's really scary. And to be in a place where what ends up happening is, after the first session, they feel like they have more power over their emotions than they ever did before. That's a life.
Like you in one position.
Yeah, well, they'll be with you for like an hour, so we'll talk about like, obviously they're there for a reason, right? So it's not, a lot of them is addiction, right? They're trying to get out of because they're in such trauma. That, right, so they already know that they're like, most of them are at their wits' end of like, help, I've tried everything, right?
Motivated.
Yeah, so they're in a place of like, help, like, my wife told me, you're great, I'm screaming at my kids every day, I'm on the borderline of.
Now, are they sober at this point?
No,
No.
sometimes it's hard to tell sometimes when there's such deep trauma. What's the issue? Yeah, I would never say like, you should or shouldn't stop drinking or using, right? But if it's interrupting your life in a way that's not okay for your wife, your children, your family, yourself, then we gotta look at it. And that's where you start. And so I don't ever, half the time, like, that's the other thing people say, go to Ayanna, she's not gonna tell you to stop drinking today. That's why people are so afraid. Sometimes if you go to a counselor, they're like, you gotta stop drinking, you gotta stop this, you gotta stop that, and you gotta do it now. That's impossible for bodies. It's just impossible. So it's how do we get people there safely in a way that isn't, and that isn't so attached to things. Yeah, and then they have some control themselves over their emotions just through breath. So you're right, it totally sounds crazy, but after the first session, they're like, I feel lighter, is what I get off, I'm less angry, is what I get, I'm drinking less. Yeah, so you just reduce the behaviors in which the trauma is trying to access to reduce pain. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Welcoming space.
Yeah.
No judgment, it's just, you just go in there, you can be vulnerable, right?
Yeah,
And
oh,
it's
yeah,
just,
we can cry every single day.
that's, I think, well, not to sound sexist, but,
Yeah,
that mostly, like, that most veterans are men. And I think, just especially the older generation, they weren't taught to be like in touch with their emotions and, crying's okay. I mean, that's some kind of view as well, right? The guy is supposed to be vulnerable and crying, but yoga is a great place to do it,
right? Yeah.
Since no one there is gonna judge you and you just work through your own stuff. And, I mean, why not? Give it a try, what's gonna harm you,
Yeah.
I say, if people are coming out after one session and feeling better, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's pretty quick, a quick result.
Right, it's very quick.
Yeah.
Right, it's like anyone sees changes in their life if you immerse them for 3 months in breath, movement, and mindfulness. I read the story in the book where there were 3 women that were working at that were just coming to Be Free. Very often they became friends. They had lost their husbands, so they sort of was like a threesome, had a little group, and they each of their doctors separately messaged me or sent me a letter asking what are you doing with these women that are so different, right? Some had diabetes, some had hypertension, overweight, like all these things as a result of losing their partners in the world. And he's like, well, I don't understand what's happening at that place. What are you doing over there? And so I was like, oh, this is fascinating. So I said, what's happening is that they found each other, right? So they found each other through the studio, didn't know each other before. So there you have a connection, right? So like I said before, humans can't heal in isolation. They heal together. So they had this little group. And then so they encouraged each other to come. They were coming 5 days a week. I mean, together, separate, all the things. And one person, their health started to go up, off blood meds, and so they all just started interacting and sharing with each other what their doctors were saying and how all of a sudden, so all this. But I will tell you, and there wasn't. I think they met with the nutritionist, but there wasn't a huge change in diet. There was certainly shifts, but what shifted the diet and the weight loss was connection with other people out of isolation and movement. So it wasn't, they still enjoyed whatever food it was. Some of it shifted just as the body naturally wants. You listen to your body about what your body wants to eat, it will tell you. Not what your brain thinks, not what your thoughts think, but actually what your gut is telling you to bring in. You'll notice there's energy with food. And it was your call to eat, right? And certain days, certain times, certain menstrual cycles before, after, right? You need carbs during those times. No one knows that that's okay. Your PMS is going, eat. Yeah. So, it was pretty fascinating that, and I have to say, connection was what changed their health. Really, I mean, obviously the movement and the stuff, but I would think the connection of the three of them, having that group, like really.
So at the center, is it mostly groups? So you said you don't see people healing on their own?
Oh, the studio, well, I mean, we had those like, we do
Classes.
groups, yeah, we could do like
Be
classes,
in a group or not.
yeah, that's what I'm talking
Find
about.
yourself
Yeah.
I seem to remember Katie giving me some details some time ago.
Yeah, about groups. Yeah, we do have groups, yeah.
Do you have a body scan meditation?
Oh my God, how sweet are you? I do not, that's recorded. I have 3 that are recorded, but the body scans are great. Yeah. You guys know the body scan is? You guys know, yeah. It's really where you bring awareness from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet, to each body part, and take it super slow. And bring breath to the places in your body that need it. Yeah, that's so great. Do you do it often?
You know, drunk habits then?
Oh, yeah, he's a favorite of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so great.
So then this will be your next book, but I work with children on my career, and I just think they need children's code doing.
I don't think so.
They have to go to school, so that they can all be in the afternoon, but it just, they need something similar.
Well,
Yeah.
Public Voice is already doing a lot of
Yeah,
good work.
they're in the schools. Yeah, we do kids classes. And we're writing a bunch of grants to be able to do more kids stuff. Because I do think, to get it early is kind of how you prevent addiction and negative behavior. It doesn't have to be addiction to substances. It could be food, could be your phone, could be anything. So that's coming for sure. Yeah. We do kids yoga weekly. We've tried to do teen yogas, but it's hard. They're so busy, most of them with sports, so which is great. Like, so it's hard to find the time to get them.
They have, my children are at Sturgis High School, they do wellness every week.
Yeah, it's on.
Yoga,
Mhm.
So, you know, it's good, it's, you know, they talk a little bit about
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. It's coming, yeah. I'd love to work with the little ones. Yeah.
So how do you advertise yourselves?
Such a good question. We have a website, befreewell.org. I can give you, I brought some flyers. And we have an app that you can just download on your phone that goes through everything that we offer in that way. Yeah, and you can even just come for the holistic services. So you can get Reiki or any of that stuff. You can just book privately on the app. You don't have to do anything else, but those are also available. So it's Reiki and reflexology, energy healing, all things. Yeah,
All good.
all good. And if you want a book, I have it here. They're $28. I have both of them. They're all the same. And I have my card if you want to find me. If you don't know how to find me. Go ahead and-
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.